Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us. My guest is here. He's an accountant, he's a financial analyst, and a children's literacy advocate, financial literacy advocate, Ayinde Oladupo. Welcome to Political Spectrum.
Thank you for having me.
Really good to have you in person in the studio for the first time.
Yeah, thank you.
But before us, with that report, we saw a few states there marking their 33 years in existence. The regime of General Badamasi Ibrahim Babangida created those states in 1991 after so much clamoring. But 33 years after, how have these states fared generally?
Generally speaking, I'm not sure they've done what was really expected of them. Mostly when they were created as an opportunity to relieve the major states that they brought them out from in terms of economic activities, commercial activities, such that the weight is not so much on these big states in quotes. But looking at how these created states have fared, some of them have done well, but I'm not sure we can really have any model we will look at and say, well, this one is an outlier among all the states that were created around that time. Yeah? Okay. So basically, it's just many of them feed from hand to mouth. And you know, I passed through a particular state, I think it was it the state after Delta? Or was it before?
Those states or Ughelli. Okay, Ughelli is Delta State.
Ughelli is Delta State. Yes. And that's the capital, right?
No, yes. Asaba is the capital.
Okay, I went through Asaba.
Is an oil-rich community.
I went through Asaba, and honestly, the only thing you will see in Asaba is the government structure there. You can't really point to any commercial activity that the state can say, okay, from this we can generate internal revenue. So you see many of those, as a matter of fact, rumor had it then that the reason why Asaba was the capital wasn't because of any other reason, rather than the wife of the person who created the state. So those are the issues we really have to look at as a country. Do we just create things because, oh, my wife our city has to be the capital of the state, or we genuinely look at figures and data and say this should be the capital of the state based on the geographical location, how this can strengthen the state as a whole, what local commercial activities can be done in this state, how is this centrally located, what are the advantages this location has before it's made the state capital, and not just emotions.
Then again, the other argument, of course, would be that some of these states had issues with majority-minority relations, you see, and sometimes the clamoring came from the point of marginalization.
Yes.
Okay, so they were looking for some sort of emancipation. Doesn't that also further the argument for the states?
I don't think so to a major extent. Yeah, if I'm clamoring for marginalization, then I should have done my assignment very well. I'm tired of living under you. By the time I start living by myself, I'll be able to feed myself. I should be able to pay my transportation. I should be able to pay my rent. I shouldn't still come back to you after you've let me free and say, I've not eaten today, please can I borrow 2,000 naira from you? So it's not just about the emancipation. Many of those states just did it as a function of, oh, we are really tired of, we need to have our own state, we need to go out. They didn't really think that it was a huge responsibility placed on them, and they have to live up to that.
You know, talking about this financing, the report just came out that 21 states, they're seeking 1.65 trillion loans, despite the 40% rise in FAC revenues. Well, just going on to buttress what you're saying, what is the fundamental deficit in the structuring of our state that has so far hindered economic progress? What do you think we could have done differently in the management of our state, the second tier of governance, in a different way, so that we won't be having this kind of headlines?
Looking at 21 states out of 36 states is alarming. That's almost maybe a little bit, like 40% of the whole states in Nigeria cannot sustain themselves.
Way more than 40%.
I'm just trying to be...
Way more, probably around 60%.
See? And that tells you we have an underlying problem. And the structure whereby we look to the central government for them to give us money every month hasn't really helped us, if we are going to be honest with ourselves. What that has done is it has given every state a sense of entitlement. Whether I work or I don't work every month, something is coming from above. And that's why you see, look at how many states, look at the percentage of internally generated revenue compared to the federal allocation states collect. You will see that many states are not even bothered to boost their IGR.
It's only about Lagos.
Lagos, Rivers State, Akwa Ibom.
No, even Akwa Ibom is not even look at like
Akwa Ibom
IGR.
has done well.
It's not IGR, it's allocation too.
No, it's not. I saw their payee.
Okay.
And it has really gone up from where it used to be. And, you know, and why that was possible is as a result of the oil company Akwa Ibom has. Okay. If you really take the pay as you earn out of the IGR factor in Akwa Ibom, then we may start looking at Akwa Ibom looking like Osun State or Ekiti State.
Funny to laugh at that, but that's a very sad reality.
That is just it. Many states are not bothered to work on what it takes to improve what they are collecting in terms of tax. Now, even the few ones that are working, they are overtaxing people. Yeah, people pay tax on multiple levels in Nigerian states. And what that does is it impacts on businesses negatively. So we have to sit down as a country, and you see this sharing money from, it's okay, but much more than that, how sustainable is every state when we take out the allocation?
You know, before we go to that NBS statistics, going back to what you were talking about, the states and the ability to create value at their own level. Just a few years ago, the former CBN governor had pushed this initiative to make about the Niger Delta, about 7 states were supposed to be given $500 million
yes,
to invest in the palm oil industry. Yeah. Now, many years ago, of course, before Nigeria became an entity, palm oil sustained all of the British, and even after most of the process that Nigeria had before 1967. In fact, before 1970 even, because even at that, oil wasn't too much, it came from palm oil and other agricultural produce that we planted in the country. Now, when you look at countries like Malaysia, and Indonesia, Malaysia particularly, because I know Malaysia, they built their palm industry from us.
Yeah.
We sent people to go, start up their palm industry.
Even the seedlings.
The seedlings. I was opportune to have even met some of the people that were sent to train. One of them died sadly.
Yeah.
But I was opportune to meet these people. And many years later, we are importing palm oil from Malaysia. So I'm wondering, if the federal government wanted to give us 500 million across 7 states or thereabout, couldn't say the Rivers State government or the Akwa Ibom State government, any of these governments raise $100 million and invest in this by themselves when the federal government didn't come through?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, yes, a state like Rivers, states like Akwa Ibom are, in quotes, the big boys states in Nigeria, based on how much they earn every month and based on, the ability for them to make something extra. I mean, they are part of the state that earn the 13% derivative. So for me, I think it's a function of you not eating with all your fingers. The money you make, do you pay everything all on salaries and constructing of road and all that? No, you should have something that you can use for, investment as a state. And that's it. I'm not sure, I really don't understand why states like Rivers and Akwa Ibom, Delta, haven't tapped into the blue economy. That we have the sea, we have everything. So what's stopping us making massive investment in things like sheep and fishing and all those other things that can add additional money to the economy rather than just sit still and expect money every month from, the federal government? And the problem, like you rightly said, is that, see, it is quick money. Money coming from oil is quick money. The one coming from palm oil has to be processed. You will plant for how many years? You have to do all this. But when you can sell 10,000 barrels every day at how many dollars, you have the money, you earn foreign currency. So it has taken the initiative away from people who want to actually do the real work in terms of, agric, in terms of manufacturing, in terms of every other thing. So, yeah, look at countries like the UAE, the Arab nations. They are even diversifying away from oil. They understand that, see, we can't keep our economy pegged on the oil. And that's why you see a country like UAE moving seriously towards tourism and earning foreign exchange just like any other country.
Well, I don't know how we're going to get out of here, but I think it demands some visiting our blueprint again as entities, because even up to now, many people are still clamoring for creation of states. There are people who are still pushing for creation of states.
Unfortunately, they don't even know how big the pocket of the federal government is.
So maybe I wouldn't have any challenge with creating how many states we wanted if the states could fund themselves. But again, revisiting the fundamental formula, before the creation of all of these states, it was the federating unit taking half of it and sending the rest to the federal government.
Yes.
Hasn't this issue also been a problem? Because if the state, for instance, kept half of what was created in their place, the value that was created in their place, and sent half of it, some other states, of course, would fare a whole lot better than waiting, for the federal government. And maybe issues that we are having in the north, for instance, in the mining sector, which has been linked to the banditry and the violence there, would have been curbed, because the states would have the incentive to take a look at what's going on in the mining sector.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, when you look at what is currently obtainable, I think it's as a result of the federal government of Nigeria not wanting state to be independent. Now, if you look at that formula they used to use before, you hold 50%, you send 50% to us. Now, the federal government wants to control the whole 100% of whatever comes from every state in Nigeria, then they give back to other states from the... Now, some states are coming to say, I give so much, I shouldn't be getting what another state that doesn't give as much as I do should be collecting. And it is a fair basis for apportioning resources. If you are not giving so much, why are you collecting so much? There are states in Nigeria that say you can't sell alcohol, you can't sell tobacco, and yet they share the same tax coming from states who are doing very well selling alcohol, selling tobacco. And these guys are saying, we don't understand. You say you are a religious state, you don't sell, but you are collecting the proceeds of us that are selling. Shouldn't you reject that money and say, this money shouldn't come to us, we don't deserve it? But you collect the money and you say you are a religious state, you shouldn't be selling. No, let the people who sell these things have this money back in full. Don't share their money with people who don't believe in selling in it.
Wow. Before again, I know we are itching to look at the NBS report that just came out. Let's stay here a little bit, talking about the states adding value. This issue raised the issue of taxation again. That's another fundamental challenge that we have. It was the former Commonwealth leader who is leading the Patriot group now. He made a statement a few days ago, I think 2-3 days ago. He said that even if looking at the structure of Nigeria as it is, our constitution and how all the things that we have put together to run this system, that even if Angel Michael were to come and lead the country, he wouldn't succeed. What's your take on the issue of restructuring with regards to its impact in the economy?
I think we are seeing it. It's just that we are living in self-denial as a country. Now, the recent protest that happened showed that Nigeria had been split right into the middle. While the North were agitating that they were going to protest, the Southwest were agitating that they were going to protest. The South completely kept quiet. They said, well, this is not a problem.
The Southeast, yeah.
Yeah, the Southeast. They said, this is not a problem. Let them go on and fight. And that is it for me. Everybody has been divided according to their region. But our leaders fail to understand and interpret the information in front of them. They are still thinking we are one big entity. But internally, we have a fracture. And it is better for us to deal with our reality and say, you know what, let's look for some sort of restructuring. It may not be you have to get a passport or a visa before you cross from Uyo to Aba. No, that's not what I'm saying. But a fiscal structuring. This region is a hub. Let's treat them as such. This region, this is another hub. Let's treat them as such. What can they do such that we don't have to be giving money to them? Let's support them. What can you do for yourself? Give the governors the ability to determine what is happening in this state. They can come together and do big projects.
But you know, we're going back to that same conversation we had in the 60s. Again, that stems from the issues of marginalization amongst this system. So, would regionalism, like Feni Ferry is saying, if you go back to regions, some other people are saying no, and maybe we should implement federalism in its purest state, where we can have the federating unit run the systems that they run without so much of interference from the center. So, which one is better? Again, implementing full federalism and making sure our laws reflect it, rather than this pretense of a federalism that some would say we are running? Or should we do, like you said, people who have identified themselves as hubs? For instance, in the south west, the security structure, Amatokun, is functioning very well.
Yeah. Now, if you look at it very, very, very well, you would understand that, see, what we have doesn't reflect what the founding fathers wanted to have. And it is us coming to say, well, democracy, yes, we like it. But if we have been able to practice this thing we came into democracy in 1999. How many years ago? 25 years or thereabouts, and we haven't gotten it right yet. Shouldn't we sit down with ourselves and say, it doesn't look like we have the capacity to deliver on this thing we are saying? What else can we do? 25 years is a lot of... You've wasted so much resources. You've wasted people's lives. You've wasted effort. You've wasted everything. You know, people just say, oh, because we're running... The true terms of democracy is not just in the name. It is in the benefits people can get from the democracy we say we are running.
Some would say that countries like the US that have been running a 300-year-old democracy haven't got it right yet. They're still having issues.
But they don't have the issues we're having.
Anyway, fair point. Fair point. They don't have the issues that we are having. Now, away from that, recently it came out that at MBS, we had a 3.3 trillion, 3.3% growth, 3.1 something percent growth in our GDP over the space of 1 year. That seems to be a good report. But my question would be, that report is on the screen, but I don't know how far it's been able to translate to me and you.
Okay, absolutely. First of all, it looks like good news, like you said, on paper. It is good news. In spite of, you know, everything happening in the economy seems to be very resilient and growing. Although we feel it should have grown more than that if things were to be in place. And that tells you that, see, Nigeria has what it takes to be great if we can get our policies right. You know, but much more than that, the reality is still stuck out there that there is hunger in the land, there is unemployment, and people are not finding it funny, living their daily lives. And we have to, as a country, come together to address it. We can't just, you know, say, oh, well, the economy is growing by 3-point-something% year-on-year basis, and that's fine. No, there are real issues. Look, if you dig deep into the figure, you will realize that the sectors driving the growth in the economy is basically the servicing sector. Yeah, and if you break it down further more, you will realize it's the telecoms.
And the banking.
And it's not even so much of banking. Banking is about just 1.6. It's the telecoms that is doing most of it. Trade. Telecoms, information system, and trade. So if you even break that further down, you will understand now that you will see motion picture, publishing, music production.
So the entertainment industry.
That is the pointer to you that a sector of the young Nigerians are the people pushing the economy.
We've never really had so. Okay, sorry for interrupting you. When you just brought this up, many years ago, they've been clamoring that Nollywood, for instance, became the largest film industry in the world.
Yeah.
By number of movies being churned out,
So, yeah.
overtaking Bollywood.
Yeah.
But when you look at it, yeah, great figures coming out from it, totally unsupported by the government.
Absolutely.
When you watch an American film, when you look at the credits, you probably will see to the whatever county, city, sheriff office, the U.S. Military, whatever. There are people who are there who are part of the production,
Yeah.
who have supported the production in one way or the other.
Yeah.
And we are seeing this situation where in Nigeria, the entertainment industry is almost not supported in one way or the other by the government. Yet, it's been able to pull this kind of result. Shouldn't the government be looking at these core areas, agriculture, entertainment, and all of these drivers and investing in it?
Unfortunately, we have people who, if they don't understand how things work, they just write it off and say, let's leave it. I really don't understand. I think for now, the Nigerian movie, music industry should be part of our budget. They should speak to these guys and say, in a year, how much do you think you can generate for us as a country? Let's come to the table, let's talk together. Because you are pulling beyond your weight. I saw a movie by Edith F. Youngins, I think a year ago, and his movie rose up to #1 in like 13 different countries in the world.
Wow.
I'm not even talking of Jamaica. I'm talking of Korea. I'm talking of Asian countries.
Wow.
Watching Nigerian movie because it was on Netflix. He rose to #1. And that's, for me, federal government need to come to these guys and say, see, we didn't know you are doing this well. Can we come together and see how you can help us? You can generate money from us, for us. But I still don't understand. All they do is they come and tell us we have invested this in this. Nobody's really saying what they are doing.
Taking a deep dive into what you're saying now. When you, again, going to the state of California is about some estimate to say the 5th largest economy in the world. Some will say it's largest economy in the world. But they're always the top 10.
Yes.
Right? And one of the major things they churn out, again, is ICT. Because most of the big ICT companies are domiciled there. Yeah. And then also entertainment. Yes. Hollywood is there. Yeah. When you watch, again, the Americans, they have a budget where not only the Americans, even the Malays have joined in. When you have a movie that promotes the country. Yeah. So, for instance, there's a movie that has to do with military, and it promotes the U.S. military, Marine, whatever. They will say, okay, let's look at your script. If it agrees to our fundamentals, we'll fund a particular percentage of it. This could also help, because this help them, what we call selling American soft power and selling American values. It's from Hollywood. The challenges that we're having around the diplomatic issues, perhaps just empowering the movie industry alone could help us where diplomacy would have failed.
I totally agree with you, but the question we need to ask ourselves is, even the military guys in Nigeria, are they well paid enough? The widows of the guys who work and lost their life, people who live in the barracks. The thing is, corruption is eating into almost every fiber of our economy, and we are not yet serious about dealing with it. See, there is no point where we are funding movies where people who fight for us in wars are dying of hunger every day. People who got amputated or their arms or leg got lost in war, they can't even be integrated fully back into the society. In developed countries, those people are called veterans, and maybe after they come back from war, they have access to buses, they shop, they get discounts. When they fly on airplanes, they get discounts, and they are honored. People wait for them, say, this is a veteran, let them sit down before you sit down. In Nigeria, do we do that? So we have to sit down and ask ourselves why we are not where we should be by the reasons of the way we run our country. Unfortunately, it's corruption. There are no two ways about it. When, our institutions are never transparent. We just hear figures rolling every now and then. The effect of those figures we don't see anywhere.
Coming back again to agriculture, you said these are some of the, I think agriculture was 22%?
Yeah.
Agriculture could have done better. Now, agriculture is doing 22%, better than crude oil, by the way.
Yes.
And this is in the face of extreme insecurity, particularly in the north, which is our agrarian belt. And Of course, we also have the challenge of storage. We have the challenge of climate change. But yet, agriculture is doing this well. What should the government and other stakeholders, because I don't think it's just the government now, what do we do to solve or to improve upon agriculture, which probably would hire more people than all of the other sectors combined?
Put together. Thank you. I think the federal government has to come to that point where now they look at agriculture the same way they look at oil. They make it look attractive to invest in as well. Because, in fact, for me, agriculture would do well than oil for an average Nigerian. Once I'm able to feed, I'm not bothered by any other thing. And that's it for many Nigerians. Food is non-negotiable. I may not buy petrol for the next 3 months if I don't have any business. I don't have a car, I don't have any. So what's my business? I don't have to power my generator.
What would Basu could be doing in a filling station?
So you see, but food is non-negotiable. Everybody eats. And that's why the federal government needs to change its approach to agriculture. You can't just say if you are jobless, pick up agriculture. Agric has to be done in commercial quantity in Nigeria. And we have to put in policies, mechanization, look at organizations that help in seedling, improve varieties, provide loans for farmers, fertilizers, things we have to. The same way we have been aggressive with oil is the same way we should be aggressive with agric. I think we would get something better.
You know, you raise a point there because 4 years ago, during the COVID lockdowns, we saw the situation where there was this skirmish between the Rivers State government and the federal government over workers who were heading out, you know, to offshore to drill. Yeah. And about violating, you know, there's this issue about the COVID laws. And the federal government came, in fact, the entire nation came, even when oil was selling at the price, in fact, you could actually give it for free and it would cost you less at that point. But we were arresting people who were going to farm. So when you talk about the issue of the importance that as a people we place on agriculture, it seems as if we forget that we eat.
Oh, we do, actually. And that's because, you see, the money in agriculture is not like this, like oil.
But it could be because countries like Brazil, countries like Argentina, this is a major issue for them. This was Malaysia, Indonesia.
Netherlands, Kenya.
Ireland uses the dairy economy is perhaps some of the most significant of the entire economy.
I think the problem with us is impatience. We don't seem to have patience for process as a country. We want it now and we want it now. And that's what oil has done to us. Now, going to agric will take a lot of planning, a lot of processes, but you see, petrol is not like that. You can easily just sell how many barrels per day and earn your money, and that's it. So for me, like I've said, we have to place value on agric as a country. It's not just what people do when they don't have job. It's not just what people do when things are difficult, when the economy is that. It is something every single person in Nigeria should be investing in, the government, and it comes from the top. It comes from the top. They should lead by example. They should make proper investments in agric and let people follow suit. That's it.
To speak with Oladipo Ayinde, he's an accountant, a financial analyst, and a children's financial literacy advocate. We have taken a look at the Nigerian economy's growth. Just figures that came out recently that we're growing at over 3%. We're also taking a deep dive into some of these statistics that have just been released by the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics. When you look at that growth rate again, the Chief of Staff, Onanuga, came out to really celebrate that this showed that the policies implemented are working according to him, and went on to double down on the present issues with regards to taxation, the revocal of subsidies, and all of this. But when you flash back 10 years ago, Nigeria was growing about 6.something%. And every pundit would say that that's about the rate that we need to grow at to be able to lift the majority of Nigerians. We don't have a middle class anymore. Our middle class have been decimated as it is, and those who can afford it have fled the country. When you look at what the government is funding themselves and the real need, how do we move from 3.19% to about 6-7% that we were on before we had that downturn?
Okay, absolutely. So for me, if we are going to do well in terms of our GDP as a country, that is one sector we are overlooking, and that's manufacturing. Manufacturing is essentially the strength of any nation. It is when we start going back to manufacturing that we can work on our inflation and our exchange rate has been spiraling out of control. Now, what manufacturing does is it stops you from going outside of your country to purchase things you can ordinarily produce inside of it. And that's where the problem is coming for Nigeria. Our demand for dollar is so much that
it's unreal.
We need dollar for everything. And that's because the structure hasn't been there. You can't pick out 5 industries in Nigeria that can complete a whole process of production without needing something outside of Nigeria. I will challenge anybody to give me one. One.
Not even construction.
Not even construction. Not one.
Not agriculture.
Any major industry in Nigeria requires an input outside Nigeria, and that's where the problem is. Not even health. Not even education.
Even the poultry.
We import pencils, for crying out loud.
We import the eggs. Even.
We import milk that our children eat to school. So that's the problem. There is always a perpetual need for dollar, and that's why the exchange rate is going out of control. And number 2, the structures aren't there. So inflation is just moving at a monstrous level.
30-something%?
It's moving at a very dangerous level that if the federal government doesn't do anything about it, we will be shocked where we'll be by December.
But the federal government seems to have rested hours on using monetary policy.
It's not working, is it? It's not. You've jacked up interest rates. It's still there. You've stopped borrowing businesses' money. It shows you that the Nigerian inflation is not a problem of monetary policy. It's a problem of circulation of money. It is so much money chasing few goods. The money is there in the economy, and the government has to get to that point where they have to withdraw this money from the economy in one way or the other. Unfortunately, they are dealing with people who are smarter than them as well. So that's the problem. It's not so much of a monetary policy issue. If it were to be monetary policy, then the interest rate hike could have solved the problem of our inflation. But it is much more than that. It is our structure. It is we having to transport palm oil from Uyo to Lagos by road. Those are the policies. Instead of us using train, now we'll buy petrol. Do you know how much petrol you buy to transport?
When we look at those charts again, some of those charts that came out, when you look at the cost of food in different regions, you notice that there are some regions the food is cheaper, but there are some other regions like in the south, like in the Akwa Ibom where we are, you will notice that the price of tomato, the price of basics are a lot more expensive.
Higher than even the North Central where they are going through banditry and all the likes of that. So it tells you that it's our structure. It is our structure. Our infrastructure is not there yet. We don't have any business transporting food from the north down to Akwa Ibom using trucks. And
I said this on air a few days ago. 2020, I remember making a trip from Plateau State, Jos, to Nigeria, or to Uyo, I mean. And how many checkpoints I met on the road and how much money changed that I witnessed, that I could see.
Exactly.
From everybody was there. Everybody, name a security agency in Nigeria, including locals, the youth groups, and
including ministries of agric.
My goodness.
State Ministry of Agric, boards, they come and you can imagine how much they collect from people transporting food. They push it back to the final user of food, which is you and I will go to the market to buy it. A friend brought in yam from Ogoda a couple of years ago, and for every yam he bought at Ogoda, I think he bought it for less than 200 naira a piece. These are huge yams. By the time he got to Uyo, the price of one tuber of yam, because of the cost he encountered on the road, had gone beyond 700 from less than 200.
Minus profit if you wanted to sell.
Now, he told me that if you buy yam, you don't load it into your bus yourself. You will pay people. Maybe they charge you 5 naira per 3 naira per tuber of yam. So depending on how many tubers, you pay somebody who
the loaders.
Two loaders. You can't buy from the market and say, I will load myself.
Even when you have 2 hands.
No, you can't do that. Now you load, the bus charges you. The bus goes on the road. It meets many government agencies.
And you buy tickets.
Those are the issues. So by the time you just one state across, this is Cross River, this is Akwa Ibom. The cost has gone from 200 to over 700. By the time the yam lands in Uyo, he has to sell it for like 1,000 naira to make up for the margins too. So that's the problem. Imagine from less than 200 or 200 or max to something to like 1,000 naira. That is massive.
Going back to the issue you raised with the industrial sector, the manufacturing sector, when you look at the Ajakuta story, it's been there since 1970. During, I think it was Obasanjo, when he was military head of state, that initiated that project. And then you take a look at, in Akwa Ibom here, you have Alfcan, Aluminium Smelt Company. It was initiated by the Babangida administration. Across the country, you have Delta Steel. They have multiple rolling mills. You have all of these carcass of what would have been the engine of our manufacturing. And you come back to the oil sector, the refineries aren't working, because the refineries, what people don't understand is that the refineries don't just produce refined petrol and kerosene and all of this, lubricant. Sometimes, also not just sometimes, you feed fertilizer from there.
Definitely.
And then you have the plastics,
Yeah.
thermoplastics and all kind of
Insecticides.
petrochemicals that are used for creating composite materials,
Yeah.
for instance. These
Yeah.
are drivers. And I'm wondering, the world is actually moving away from some of these manufacturing methods. And I don't even know whether if we were to fix Ajaokuta as using the plan that we have, that the original plan, whether it would be a viable quest and how much it will aid in our development. I'm not even wondering. But the question I'm asking now would be, is it that they've totally abandoned manufacturing and we've taken this as a model? Or when you see government make moves like this, and they keep talking about it, recently we heard the story that the Russians are back in Ajaokuta to inspect the plant that was initiated in 1970, something older than so many people. What's the government really doing about manufacturing?
Thank you very much for that question. I think the problem with manufacturing in Nigeria has to do with the inflation rate. Now, manufacturing is so complex such that it has to move from one point to the other, to the other, to the other, before you get it to the final users. Now, we have a country which is import dependent. Now, take for example, if I manufacture toothpicks in Nigeria, I'm likely going to incur more costs than somebody who imports toothpick from China. Why? The cost of production in Nigeria is high. I will import the machineries, I will bring the experts, I will pay them in foreign currencies, I'll probably run on diesel, I'll probably transport my wares by road, and all those kind of things. Now, in China, there is no such thing like that. So there is a huge possibility for somebody who has gone to faraway China, import toothpick, he can add a reasonable margin and even sell that toothpick lesser than what I'm going to be able to sell it. So there is already a disincentive in the market already for manufacturing in Nigeria as a result of the interest rates.
You picked on the issue of power. Some estimate to say that the deficit of power demands in Nigeria, it's amounting to about 98,000 megawatts. We barely, on a very good day, we barely produce, we generate more, but we barely distribute 4,000 megawatts, barely, on a good day. So we're talking about 96+% deficit. That's how far we're going. And I'm wondering, like you rightly pointed out, everybody seems to have, the manufacturers have actually abandoned the national grid. The federal government came the other day and was saying manufacturing should come back to the national grid. But who would want to plug his business into something that is this unreliable?
So frequently.
Now, is it that, because we've experienced this in Uyo, we had a period of over 10 days or so, we didn't have power. It's as if, again, going back to that issue that you raised, that we focus on oil because there's little that we really do. We just sit down and an allocation shows up. And so we don't really bother to know. Because I'm wondering, if we were depending on our tax, internally generated revenue, and your economy for 10 days does not have power, wouldn't you raise hell or do whatever? In fact, it took many days for us to even figure out what we heard. It was TCN line that collapsed, blah, blah, blah. And then finally we heard that the Bompa people said that they didn't even get gas. So is it that we are not prioritizing what we don't believe in ourselves? Is this what it is? Because if we are exporting gas to China and Japan and we are having significant deficit, wouldn't it be rational to just say we are not exporting gas? We want to, for the next 5 years, want to make sure that our domestic power plants have gas to be fired. Many of them, in fact, we install capacities over 15,000 megawatts, but we don't have gas to fire many of them.
I think the problem with our distribution has to do with theft, just like petrol.
People can steal gas, can't they?
People steal electricity. Okay. Have you listened to the power holding companies and all that? Their problem is always theft. They send them this amount, they get it, but they say what we have is not what you said you sent to us. What is happening? Somewhere along the line, things have been stolen, and that's a story for another day. But for me, I think we have to get to that point as a country where we have to tell ourselves the truth, that we are in a bad state economically, and we are very wasteful. We have the resources. Somebody was making a joke. He said when God was creating Nigeria, he created the weather, he created everything, natural resources. And other countries were agitating and saying, God, this is unfair. Why are you creating this country so good like this? He said, God said, wait, let me create the people before you complain now.
My goodness.
So you see, we are our problems ourselves. We really need to get to that point where we don't depend so much on the money coming from the central, and we have to look at what we can do internally. Akwa Ibom is in a very good position as a state, and I will say it any day, anytime. I'm happy there are investments in the airports. The international wing is coming on. I hope the seaports gain traction. We're in a good position.
That's a conversation for another day.
I hope that the whole of the Southeast and the South-South comes to Akwa Ibom to do business as a result of these infrastructures that they are building. And if it gets to that, honestly, it's only a matter of time before, they will be economically stable as a state. This state wouldn't have to look for money coming from anywhere before they can do what they need to do if they get things right. It all goes, I think, as a state, Akwa Ibom is about 5-7 solid policies away from being financially stable if they can get it right.
Speaking with Ayinde Oladipo, accountant, financial analyst, and children's financial literacy advocate. We're looking at the state of the Nigerian economy, X-raying, of course, the states that we created and who celebrated 33 years anniversary only yesterday, and also dived into the Nigerian GDP growth results as well as the report from the NBS. But it's been wonderful speaking with you and all this. Of course, I'll bring you back. We have so much to talk about, but this is how far we can go, Ayinde. Thank you for being on the program.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
That's how far we can go today. Of course, we'll bring you Political Spectrum again tomorrow. But from us here, do enjoy the rest of your day.